Hey guys, Dave from Nerdarchy, for Nerds by Nerds, and today I'm hanging out with Doug Vahovic from the website or Nerdweb and Nerditor, and we also have Adam Bradford from D&D Beyond with us this afternoon, this morning, this evening, depending on where you are in the world. We've already got like a bunch of people hanging out in the chat and have been chatting away for a while now, so I'm super stoked to have you on. We're big fans of D&D Beyond, and I'm only using a tiny portion of it myself right now. And we're looking to use more and more of it. But I love it just for when I run my online games and like the tabs that I need, I have open, and I can just look at things. And literally, it's what I used to do with the PDFs when Watts used to sell the print book and the PDF. Would buy both every time, and when I'd run my game from my laptop, instead of like actually writing stuff up, I would just open all these tabs to things that I wanted at hand. So how are you gentlemen doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks. How are you, Doug?
Fantastic. I'm doing awesome.
I'm doing good, and they're already starting with questions, and good job, Poison, because if you guys want to ask questions, put the word question before it. It makes it so much easier for us to pick them out.
And I'll keep an eye on those for you guys.
Yeah, can I see questions? Like, is there a way to see chat?
There is.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can't just give you the actual link to just the chat.
Okay. We can
see how that works.
That works. All right. Oh yeah, live chat. How about that?
Yeah. And, I know you're pretty prolific. Like, you're on Facebook, you're on Twitter, you're doing all the things, you're making things work. And, because I know Doug is definitely, when he's writing articles and doing stuff, he's like, I got a question. Then he hunts down the person and he's like, I can ask Adam a question at all hours and I get an answer.
Yeah, I don't know if we want, the all hours part quite getting out. My wife probably would not like that, but no, I definitely
get that. But the weird thing is,
answers.
The weird thing is, he was saying how you're constantly working. It seems like you're working all the time. And then he thought about it. He's like, wait a minute. If I'm sending out questions at all hours of the night, does that mean I'm working all the time?
It's like, I think you're looking in the mirror there, Doug.
Yeah, right.
So I think that the key for all of that is living in the world that we do now with the technology that we have. I remember working, that 9-to-5 job that I was at for a decade before I came over to Curse. And I remember just always kind of clocking in and clocking out, right? And then as the years went on and we got computers in our hands and, all this kind of stuff with smartphones and all the other technology, it got to be where work schedules could be more and more flexible. And so I really do enjoy myself quite a bit. I, have a family. I've got two sons that, spend all kinds of time with them. We just watched all the Star Wars movies over the Thanksgiving break, like all of them. So, great time. So I am definitely not like overworked or anything. I don't want anybody to feel sorry for me. It's just I can work at very different kinds of hours than people used to have to. So I really like that.
Yeah, it's different when you do something you love too, so it's more like just project driven and it's just like, well, I want to get these things done. So it's like, well, if it's 3 a.m, then it's like, I want to do this thing. I want to get this thing off my to-do list.
Absolutely.
Did you watch the holiday special too? You watched all the Star Wars movies?
No, not the holiday special. Now, I have seen the holiday special more times than I would probably go to, but
well, very soon we'll have a new Star Wars movie to watch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a couple weeks.
Yeah, eventually, like we've started this tradition. I guess we've done it for maybe this was the 3rd year that we've watched all of them. And I got to thinking, 3 years down the road, I'm not sure we'll be able to do it because they're going to come out with a new movie every year. It's going to get a little bit full. So I'm not sure how much longer we'll be able to do that.
It's going to have to be, instead of a day, it's going to have to be a holiday weekend.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it kind of already is because, I've got an 8-year-old and he can't sit still for long enough. So it's kind of already through the weekend. But yeah, it's going to get pretty jam-packed, but I guess I'm not going to complain about it if they're making good films.
Right.
My friend, have you ever considered duct tape? I kid, guys. Nerdarchy does not endorse duct taping small children.
I didn't. No.
So, Poison from Kuwait has a question about the mobile app, and if you guys have an ETA on that. I know you guys have been talking about it, and I don't know if we're allowed to say that we saw a little bit of it. You know,
yeah, he shared it on Twitter, man.
Yeah. I shared a little bit on Twitter. I shared more than that with Dave at Unplugged. It was great to get to meet you there in person, Dave, and Ted and Nate. Really fun time. Talked for much longer than I anticipated we would talk there. So it was good to see you. And yeah, so the mobile app, I'm terribly excited about it. I've got my iPad Pro. And I'm just using it so much. I find myself already using it so much, and that concept of being able to treat it like a book, because that's the real key here, especially for this first release of the mobile app, is it is for all intents and purposes an e-reader, and it is doing some really, really cool things with the content, letting you go into night mode and all of that kind of stuff. And so really excited about it. As far as the timeline goes, everybody always asks for the timelines, and I, the kind of the vein of anybody that leads a project or a product before me, am going to say that I can't give you specific dates, but I did reveal on our most recent monthly live stream that we are targeting this year. So we are trying to get the alpha access out to anybody who pre-ordered Xanathar's Guide to Everything. Keep your eyes peeled. There will be some additional ways for you to get into that alpha as we go through the rest of the year here. We're definitely going to cast the net as wide as we can there. So if you want in, there are probably some very good chances for you to get into the alpha, but we want to get the alpha out before the end of this year. And then it's not going to take terribly long after that for us to go into, an actual release. And of course, we'll call the release beta, not because that's just what everybody does, but because we mainly want everyone to understand that what we do release as the initial jumping on point for the app is definitely not the end of the road. It's going to incorporate over time all the character management stuff, everything that we're doing with character sheets and the character builder. It will have all of the listings content that we currently have on the site with all those advanced filters. All of that will come to the app. We're just starting here with essentially this compendium, reader kind of content. That's the starting point.
So Ed does everything. Are you going to release an API so you can interface with it through third party?
We've gotten this question several times, and I'm really happy about this question for a variety of reasons. And I think the major reason is that if people are wanting access to an API, it means that they're seeing some value in what we're doing, and they're wanting to leverage that. And so it's definitely an exciting thing. The truth of the way that stuff works out, especially in a development world, is making something that we would be proud of to publicly expose. It definitely takes work. It takes time and effort and energy. And we are seeing this question come up more and more. And so it's something that this thing that's probably been pretty far down the list is kind of edging itself up in priority, but we still have some really, really big fish that we're trying to fry with things like getting this character sheet revamp completed, moving into some very exciting things with encounter building and building monsters and the progression for monsters and all of that. So the public API is something that we're certainly trying to conceptualize at this point. It's nothing that we're going to be putting finger to keyboard on in the very short term, but it is something that we do plan to have at some point in the future.
I'd like to put, and somebody mentioned, will it be more user-friendly than the website? I would hazard to guarantee that it will, but I find that even the site, like on my phone or tablet, is already pretty user-friendly for me. Like all the people I play with, they love the character sheet. You can just like use the abilities and hit the refresh if it's like a long rest thing. But one thing I wanted to bring up, and that you mentioned kind of touched on your developer updates, is like you know, a lot of the things people like, I wish it did this, I wish it did that. Just tell you guys, because the responsiveness I've found from like you and the rest of the team and the moderators on the website is amazing. And like so many times I'm like, I wish it did this, and it's like, okay, well they're working on that, or you know. So the more, it seems like the more people use it and find things and give you guys feedback, that helps you develop the thing.
Yeah, it absolutely does. It's incredibly important for us to receive that feedback. The thing that's going to happen as that feedback is coming in is everyone is going to think that we're not moving as fast as they want us to move. And I get that. I've been on the other side of this. I wish The Last Jedi was out right now. I would be watching it. You know, I want it so badly to happen. And so I get how that is being a fan, and I get, you know, how tough it is to wait for things. The thing that we are trying to take a very intentional approach with is how we integrate and how we put new features into what is D&D Beyond. We're taking a path just like Wizards of the Coast has taken with the game itself, where they wanted to play test this. They play tested Next for a very long time with hundreds of thousands of people. And I think that the results in how that game is now playable are really self-evident. It looks like it was a really good move on their part to make sure that they play tested that as much as they did. And so for us, we are not going to just kind of throw things out there in a reactive manner. We're not going to have these knee-jerk reactions where, you know, people are saying that they want one thing, we make a change very quickly, and it affects and impacts other things that, you know, were unforeseen. We are taking a very intentional approach with this. So even with character management, we know that there are issues with the way that the character sheet works. We know that there are definitely issues with the PDF output, like not happy with that at all. So all of these issues that have been reported through the forums, all of that has been read. I can guarantee you that if it has anything to do with features or functionality on the site, I have personally read every single one of those posts, and we are compiling that. We're trying to make the best decisions for the game. So it's similar, you know, people are, you know, getting up in arms sometimes about why the revised Ranger or the Mystic is not in the game officially in some capacity yet. You know, why was that not released as part of Xanathar's? All of this is because Wizards of the Coast knows that there are problems with the Mystic right now. They are working through those problems. They are trying to make sure that they don't introduce something into the game that is going to be a bad thing for the game, like a Warblade in 3.5 or whatever. You know, like they're trying their best to avoid those kind of situations, and we're going to take a similar path. So the feedback is really important. We're going to read every single bit of that. We're going to compile that. We're going to take a consensus. We're going to make the best of the decisions that we can based on that feedback. It's never going to be as fast as everybody wants it to be, but we are going to very intentionally be, you know, working through that list and bringing more and more value to the service.
Now, we've kind of discussed this a little bit when we met with you, and Nerdarchy as YouTubers actually use D&D Beyond a little bit differently. It's become a really cool resource for us getting to information really fast without having to do the sorting. And, you know, in that process, we've actually found a feature we'd like to see, and that is Monster by Special Attack.
Okay. All right. That's interesting.
You can't do that. I think that's one of those things, like I said before, it's like you wish it, you can, if you just search for like life drain, for instance.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
like,
if you do a search.
And then you can filter just monsters.
I think that it would be very helpful to be able to do that in the filters themselves. And I think as we get into monster progression, I'm really excited about that. I wish you guys could get a little peek. You know, I sometimes spoil things, and so I'm sure that people will start getting peeks earlier than some people on the development team would want me to give them. But I wish you guys could see what we have planned for monster progression and the monster builder itself. You know, being able to not only what you're talking about there, Dave, be able to kind of sort by attacks or special abilities, but being able to, you know, take a monster and drag a special ability or an attack from this monster A, over to monster B, and then challenge ratings and all that automatically calculating. That is the vision that we have for that, and it's going to be glorious. I'm going to go ahead and say it's going to blow people's minds. I don't try to hype things up too much, but it's blown my mind what we're going to be able to do with that, because it's just something that is a challenge right now. Right now, if I'm wanting to run something in a game that is not already in a book somewhere, I am not going to spend that time to sit there and stat that creature out before that game. I'm going to take another monster. I'm going to reskin it. I'm going to call it whatever I'm wanting to call it. I'm going to probably on the fly throw in some custom abilities or abilities from another creature or whatever. And then in my head, I'm trying to calculate that challenge rating the best that I can to make sure that it's not breaking that encounter for the players. And so with this builder, that's going to take the time needed to build something out like that down to just minutes. And I think it's going to open up a new thing for the game. It's going to allow people to finally give that magic item to that creature. The magic item's not sitting on the shelf over here when you're fighting the creature, it's actually using it. So yeah, it's all something that is really, really exciting. It's down the road. We are trying to do our best to make sure that we are in a really good spot with the character builder and the character sheet before we move on to that in earnest. But it is coming pretty soon.
Yeah, we had a discussion the other day, and it's like, a couple of the classes have these abilities where, you have resistance to, damage from bludgeoning, slashing weapons that aren't magical. And, Ted's like, well, that ability's ass at high levels. And I'm like, well, is it really? Like, without seeing, like, on the surface, it seems like it would be. But, like, without the data in front of you, maybe it is better than it seems.
Yeah, and I think it's really funny. We on the team here, we had almost an identical discussion about even with a werewolf, and like how valuable is that immunity to bludgeoning, piercing, slashing damage that's not silver at higher levels. And I think it really comes down to the way that you budget your encounters. And one of the things that I've found has been really effective. I'm running a high level campaign right now. Players are, I think they're about to be level 16 when we have our next session. And high level play in 5th edition especially is really, really interesting. I think everybody that saw anything to do with the conclusion of Critical Role and everything that was happening, you can just see that stuff gets really batshit crazy. And so one of the things that I'm very intentionally trying to do is trying to figure out how to run high level play more effectively than it's the examples we have. And of course the examples are sparse because hardly anybody plays into those levels, and the data really backs that up. But ultimately with that, the thing that I'm finding balances encounters more than anything is action economy. I think I've mentioned this even the last time I was here. I mentioned this, but it's like that ability to have some kind of resistance or immunity to those small damage types, like the non-magical or whatever, it comes into play a whole lot more if you're using a lot of minions that are just eating up action economy from people that, you're not getting an opportunity attack against big bad evil guy if you're spending that on one of the minions because you didn't know, and it's like that kind of stuff. It definitely becomes more powerful, and that's one of the things that we're going to be able to do with some of the data that we're just kind of just now getting into the data that we have, because we've got 3 months worth of post-launch data now, and of course we've got 6 months or so of beta data that we had there. And it's really, really interesting. One of the things, Hexblade Warlocks are more popular than you guys could even imagine. Like, it's unbelievable how many Hexblades have been made since Xanathars came out, especially compared to all, we got 21 new subclasses with Xanathars, and I want to say that Hexblade is somewhere like 18% of the Xanathars content characters are using Hexblade. I mean, it's just like this huge gulf compared to any of the other subclasses. So there are a lot of Hexblade lovers out there. But all that data is going to be really, really fantastic. We're going to be able to see things once we get into combat tracking. We're going to be able to see things, how much resistance to non-magical attacks is coming to play. So really excited about that also.
I love the data sharing and the development updates. It's really interesting to see. And as another example, I thought of how like usage helps you guys, because you had mentioned like, well, feats is something that people share a lot. So the takeaway is like, well, maybe that is not as clear of how to find that on the site. So even that kind of stuff. But the one thing I thought was interesting was like the huge amount of time spent but low views on gods in the multiverse. I was like, did somebody just leave the tab open too long? Because really that whole section is just like tables of gods, and it's like that's a long view time but not a lot of viewers.
Yeah, and we definitely try the way that our analytics work, it definitely is going to have diminishing returns. So if you leave a tab open forever, it's not going to impact the data as much as some people might think. But ultimately I think that is a testament to what D&D Beyond is trying to do. We are not, and this is a thing that I think people maybe sometimes forget and sometimes take for granted. Like I even take this for granted at this point, but we're not just a character builder. We're not just making characters and giving you a digital sheet to play those characters. It is something that we're absolutely doing, and we are committed to being, the best at that. And in the next, couple of months, you're really going to start to see a culmination of a big amount of effort, geared around that. But being able to just access these books digitally, and especially with the upcoming mobile app, all of that is a way to consume this content. And I think that people, I do this myself. I sit there and I just look at the listings of the gods. I spent a lot of time in the Sorcerer's Adventures Guide chapter that's talking about the gods. I would say that I'm somewhat of an expert on the religion of the Forgotten Realms. And so it's like, all of that is really, really amazing that you can do that on the go. You can do that, on the website with D&D Beyond, in addition to all these other tools that we're going to add on top. And so it's been really important for us to get the foundation right and to get that database and all that compendium content kind of right. And then now we're just coming out on the other side of that, where we can start doing some really, really interesting things with it.
I know when I'm looking at D&D night now and I'm looking at my 30-pound book bag and my phone, that's
how you get swole though, man.
Yeah, but only on one side. I think that's how you get backpack shoulder or something. There's like a medical disfigurement that happens. So on the app, Ed Does Everything is asking, that's across all platforms?
Well, I got to be careful saying all. So it's definitely going to be available on iOS and Android for the mobile app. We are not doing anything with Windows at this point in time. And I'll just kind of throw this out there. The Windows data is minuscule, if non-existent. So it's going to take quite a bit of campaigning for us to be able to make a business case to do anything on, especially Windows Phone, but even, some kind of native Windows app is going to be difficult for us. I think once people see how easy it is to access everything on Android and iOS, that's going to really cover the vast majority of people that are wanting to use what D&D Beyond is offering. So we'll come out on iOS and Android for the mobile app experience. That is fully offline. So, but as far as cross-platform goes, you'll be able to buy something on the website. It is available to you in the mobile app and vice versa. So any kind of purchases completely work across any of the available devices. And it's going to it's going to be really interesting at some point when people get this offline access to the app, being able to see just how fast and snappy that is, because we get a lot of very interesting feedback, occasionally now where people are talking about something's not working quite right or something's not being as fast as it should be. And being in web development, one of the things that we realize is 90% of the time those problems are ISP related. 90% of the time you don't have enough juice coming in, or something like that. Now, yes, we have to develop around really good standards to make sure that things are optimized, and we've got years of wonderful platform experience and everything that we've got a really incredible caching mechanism in our framework that we make D&D Beyond. So we spent a lot of time optimizing things. I think they're in there optimizing things this morning. We were talking about doing some things. So, but most of the time it's that internet connection that is causing a problem. And so once we get this all into offline, it is not a problem. And then all of a sudden you're moving. I mean, I was on my iPad Pro earlier, and I was swiping pages, and as fast as I could swipe them, it was happening. And it was a thing of beauty. So really excited to get that into people's hands.
Definitely, once that comes, it's going to make everything so much smoother. So Zarif Gaming wanted to know how the Twitch integration is coming along.
Twitch integration, that's a great question. I think I saw another question come through that I'm going to answer first before I get to that one, because it really impacts it. I saw a question come through for what size our development team is. And so our development team is currently, we've added 2 mobile developers in the last few months here to the team. And so that's where all this goodness is coming from, is their inclusion. But so we got the 2 mobile developers. We've got 2 dedicated what we call back-end developers. So these are the people that are doing the database work, as well as making sure that all the .NET and everything that we're using is working. And then we currently have 1 front-end developer who is making everything look pretty on the other side of that. So as you can imagine, it's a pretty small team for what's going on here. Now, the good news is that as we continue to see success here, I think that I'm going to be able to leverage a good bit of the goodwill that comes from that to increase that the team's size. That's definitely a goal. We want to get this stuff done faster, just like everyone in the community wants it done. So we're going to continue to increase the size of the team. But at the end of the day, we have 3 developers that are working kind of on the website component, and then we have 2 that have come on in recent last few months to start working on the mobile side. And so pretty small team for what we're trying to accomplish. We'll continue to grow that. So having said that, Twitch integration is one of those things. We want to make a Twitch extension that is doing some really cool stuff with letting people stream. You can hover over a nameplate on the stream card, and when you do that, it would tooltip the entire character's information, live hit point updates, initiative tracking, that kind of stuff. So the thing about that is this is all something that we could pull off with relative ease, to be honest. Like, this is not a complicated thing for us to do. Way harder to figure out all the intricacies of how a warlock works than it is to get something like a Twitch extension to work here. The problem really just comes down to time. And so the longer answer there is we are definitely intending that to come out the early part of 2018. So you can take early part to mean, hopefully Q1. I'm hoping that this is Q1 kind of stuff, that at least the first pass of the Twitch extension is available. And that's what we're really pushing for. I want another resource that can be dedicated to that to make that happen much faster. So we'll see where I get with that.
That's awesome. So Jermok wants to know, are there going to be any ruling features that account for rules automatically without the player needing to remember them, such as adding rage damage to your rolls, or players, or so the players that forget rules and stuff like that? So like you could toggle rage on or off or something like that.
Yeah, so that would definitely come in. So right now, everything is powered. We're doing a whole lot of that right now for anything that is not a temporary effect. So, the entire builder is built on a very uncreatively named modifiers system that we have built out. This is something that you use when you create homebrew elements. So everything is built off of that. I think it's a system that provides a really large amount of flexibility. So that system has worked out really well for us. And so if you are a barbarian that hits 20th level, you are automatically going to see your strength and constitution go up by 4 points. All of that is built in using these modifiers. So one of the next things that we would do, like kind of as we move into combat tracking, which again, to kind of remind everybody of the roadmap itself, we're really nailing character management in the next few months here. That's the focus right now. Based on all the feedback we've received from all the way since beta, we'll move into encounter building and monster building after that. Once we have the characters piece and then the encounters piece together, we will put that all together, and it will be combat and initiative tracking. So once we get to that point, we will be able to, and I imagine you'll start seeing things like rage and even wild shape and all that kind of stuff, much sooner than that. But we will have temporary effects that will call temporary modifiers that you can toggle on and off for things like that.
So Caleb has a question, and I'm not going to have you answer. I'm going to actually answer this one. It's real simple, Caleb. D&D Beyond licenses from Wizards of the Coast. They are not Wizards of the Coast. They don't own it. They have to put forth all the development, so that goes into this. So it would have to be like a charity where they were giving things away in order for them to continually, give you it because you bought it once. There's lots of places where Wizards of the Coast is licensed, and you can now get their properties multiple ways. But those people doing that need to be compensated somehow. It's like if you're a baker and someone came into your shop and said, "Hey, I bought bread down the street. I shouldn't have to buy it here too." Just give it to me. It's just the way the world works. It's business.
I haven't heard the baker analogy. That's an interesting one. I think that the thing that people have kind of used in the past, I'm going to go ahead and go on record and tell everyone here anyway, that I, as a fan that has played the game for a long time, I knew coming into this process that this concept of having to make or rebuy, and I do air quote that because I really do understand that you're buying a different product there, but having to do that, I knew that was going to be something that was going to be a challenge. As a fan, I really wish that we could just give this stuff away. Like if I had a way for my salary to be paid and everybody else's salary to be paid on the team, and all that kind of stuff, and we can give this stuff away, trust me, I would be doing it, because I think it would be a wonderful thing for the game. It's not something that our world can allow for. It's just not the way that this works. Now, I can say that as we're going forward, there have been a lot of false starts when it comes to official digital support for Wizards of the Coast products. As we go forward, we got a really good relationship with Wizards of the Coast. I don't see a 6th edition happening for a long time. Like, you can take that as you will. And so as we start to move forward into the future, we're going to continue to look for ways that we can ease some of that financial burden on fans. But at the end of the day, and we saw this with Xanathar's, Xanathar's has already become the highest selling product on D&D Beyond. And I think a big part of that is that it is one of the, it's the first major release that has had, there hasn't been a choice. You're not choosing between buying a physical or where there has been a choice is what I meant to say, that you're choosing between buying that physical book or the digital product. And so I think that going forward, that's going to become less and less of a burden because you can make an informed decision on what you want. I am a person that's going to continue to get a physical book and the digital product because I want to support the hobby, and I want to support, I want people to support us because, again, as I said earlier, we're a pretty small team. I want that to change. I want us to do all the things. I want us to do all the things now. And so the more that you support us, the more we're going to be able to make that vision a reality.
And honestly, like you just said, I cherish my books, but I use both. I mean, there's value in both those, using both those things. And, related to another question here about, giving incentives to buy. You got a huge Cyber Monday sale going on right now. So if you're on the fence,
perfect segue, yeah. So So yeah, we do have a Cyber Monday sale going on right now, and so every single adventure and source book adventures are normally, and I want to go ahead and say this too. Before D&D Beyond became a reality, digital products for Wizards of the Coast content were in the $49.99 range. And so when people are talking to me about, wanting this to be given to them and all this kind of stuff, I really do wish that I could, have collected the blood and the sweat and the tears that I'm going to go and say I personally went through to try to drive that price down from $49.99 to $29.99. I'm going to go and say you're welcome. But ultimately, so that is an example of us trying to say, hey, we know that you could have bought this stuff before. I don't want to charge you what this book, was costing here. And so for typical source book content, Volo's Guide to Monsters, Xanathar's Guide to Everything, those are typically $29.99. Today they are $19.99, so that's $10 off. And then for adventures, they're typically $24.99. They are also $19.99. So $5 off there. This is the lowest price that this content really has ever been. So I encourage everyone to complete your collection. The Legendary Bundle is also discounted accordingly. So go on and take the plunge. There's not going to be a better time to do that. Big sale today.
I would to add to that too. If people haven't used it at all, we just started a Nerdarchy a campaign for that Play for Wyatt cause recently. So it's like if you've never used it at all, go check it out. You can build an NPC character in our campaign and just get your feet wet and see what kind of tools there are. And if you want to do a little micro transaction to get a couple of classes or something, you can check those out too. I did have a question about that. Does it prompt you, like if you bought like a class or, races from a book and you've reached the point where it would have just paid for the book, does it just tell you that, like, hey?
To be quite honest, I'm not sure how the prompt is going to work there. But I do know that you should see that very, very clearly on the checkout page. You'll see the entire, so we do, that's another thing that is really interesting. And we did this, this was another example. This one was a hard sale, but I ended up pushing this through. Is this concept that once you buy a spell, once you buy a magic item, whatever, in the player's handbook, if you've not bought the entire source, we're going to give you previously purchased content credit. So if you've spent $5 on a few elements and you want to buy the whole thing, even today for $19.99, then you're only going to spend, the $15 there. So any purchases that you make are not going to be wasted. We will go ahead and say that the data we have coming in, we do not have that many people comparatively making those smaller individual purchases. We'll continue to offer that as a point of flexibility, but we are seeing that most people are just, buying the source itself and getting everything unlocked.
Yeah, that's a tremendous deal, though, I think, too. Like, if you're just a player and you're like, look, all I want is my character, he's a tabaxi, drunken master, whatever. It's like you can just get those two things. Then later, if you want, that, like the relative value, it's like, if you pay $3 for the race and it takes that off the total book, that's a huge value.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, it's definitely the point that if you want to try things out, if you want just that piece, you might be a player that is just playing a tabaxi monk and that's all you care about for a while, but then you transition into dungeon mastering and you want to get into it more. All of that content that you've purchased is going to apply. This also counts for the Legendary Bundle as well. So, if you ever get to a point where you want to just bridge that gap and purchase the Legendary Bundle, I'm really shocked, to be honest, how many Legendary Bundle owners and purchasers we have out there. Just a ton of early support from folks there that has made an actual difference, not only in just obviously our financials, but in the longevity of D&D Beyond. Investing in the platform at that level is a huge thing. And so we're really, really thankful for the people who've bought the Legendary Bundle. It really does mean a lot to us. And I think, from that, the real key there is the 15% off. So it's like if you buy a Legendary Bundle, you're going to continue to get 15% off for every future purchase. So that's going to drive that price down even more.
Well, it's a great deal, and over time it just gets better because you get that discount. And if you happen to be lucky enough to get in early and grab it initially, and that and going forward, and I'm really impressed with the fact that you guys do prorate your products and go, well, you've been buying this stuff piece by piece. Now you own the same, you own the whole thing. That's not something that's very common. So, kudos to you guys for doing that. With the talk of the API, it kind of got me thinking. We had a guest on not that long ago, World Anvil, and they put together these really cool digital tools for world building for writers or gamers or whatever. And I was like, this would be awesome if there was a connectivity to D&D Beyond where you can actually import, the official stuff right into it.
Yeah, this is all something that we would be, really excited to explore, especially when we get to that point where we feel like we're on some pretty firm footing on what I would define as, the core of the product. So again, character management, getting encounter monster building. I think when we get on the other side of those things, a lot of new possibilities are going to open up for us to have some of this third-party integration. I am a big fan of Sirenscape. I use that in my games. Again, I'm a huge Star Wars fan. Sound and music is so essential to Star Wars. To be honest, it kind of makes those films, I would strongly argue. And so I use that in D&D games, and Sirenscape is the easiest way that I've found to be able to have a really fine level of control over that. And one of the things we're doing with our character sheet revamp is we're removing collapsibles. So we're taking these folded areas out of the character sheet because we've heard the feedback. Our intent there when we went that direction was to make sure that you had everything you could possibly want to know about that element, about that attack or whatever, right there and easy for you to get to. The feedback we were getting is that clicking through to get to that information is more frustrating than it would be to expose a little bit more of that information at a glance before any clicking. And then instead of collapsing that and possibly creating layout concerns, we're going to move that into a sidebar on desktop and then just a simple cover in mobile. And basically, so if you're looking for the really deep details on an element, you're going to click that and the sidebar is going to appear. But one of the things we're even talking about with trying to reach out to Sirenscape is, how cool would that be to have your character and in the sidebar you have this Sirenscape integration where you can actually set up a sound set for your character. So you've got your character's theme music, you've got if it's a spellcaster, you've got all these spell effects.
That's awesome.
All of that kind of stuff would be available right there with the character and integrated. So these are all things that we want to do. We just got to get a few months under us here, and we'll be able to start looking into this.
Yeah, it's interesting that, like you'd said, there's a lot of things you want to do and it's just time. And I was just occurred to me, it's like, it's only really been released for like a couple of months and it's already evolved and gotten better. So like, yeah, I mean, there's clearly a lot of things you guys want to do and have like a long vision of roadmap for the future. So yeah, like, for just the fact that it's been out for what, like,
we're just over 3 months from the official launch, and of course we had a beta period for 6 months or so there, but yeah, I mean, we've been at this kind of entirely for less than a year, and I think that by this time next year, I'm really excited to see where this is going to go. And again, I'm not giving any official proclamations here or anything, but a year in the scope of what is left for 5e is really not that long. 5e, again, this is my opinion, and I'm not divulging any insider knowledge. But 5e is going to be around for a while. You know, it's one of those if it ain't broke, don't fix it situations. So
I think this might help address. There was a discussion there too, like people, you know, and I've heard this a lot. Like, well, what if the company just stops, you know, supporting it or shuts down? Now, I believe the mobile app works offline because it's downloading it to your device too.
That's
so
correct.
even that, it's like, well, then even God forbid that happened, you'd still have the stuff on your device. So
yeah.
So TrueMate wanted to know, do you guys have any plans for a map builder or pre-gen map options being added to D&D Beyond? Well, in the campaign section, you can upload videos, you can upload images. So even if it doesn't get added, I know you can put your own stuff in there or import them.
Yeah, you can do it. We have so much in store because campaign management, and I've seen a couple of things here in the chat. I'm trying to pay attention to it a little bit, but I've seen some folks talk about making DM tools, and I definitely get it, and I agree. There's nothing about what we're doing that is saying we don't want to offer DM tools. We just feel very strongly that we need to get the player part of this right first before we can move on into a lot of that other stuff. And I am not happy with where some of the character stuff is, and so we're going to get happy there, and then we're going to move on to some of this other stuff. And so ultimately, as we move forward into encounter building, monster building, of course, that's very DM centric, but campaign management is another really, really big thing that we're focusing on. And just like we've done with character management, where we've gotten just literally, I mean, I think it may be in the hundreds of thousands of posts at this point that we've read through about feedback with what's going on in the builder and the sheet. And we didn't make knee-jerk reactions. We've compiled that. We've let it kind of ruminate and settle in, and really deciding intentionally the path forward that's going to be the best. We're going to do the same thing with campaign management. And I'm not bringing that up to say that it's going to be an eternity before we start seeing that. I am just explaining that that's the process we're in right now, is we're taking that feedback. We have some really, really exciting things that are, you know, on tap for campaign management that are, you know, people have been asking for private forums, for instance, for campaigns. This is something that I feel like we could do with, you know, a reasonable amount of effort. We could get that out. I'm not convinced that it is the best long-term path for what we actually see the end vision being for campaign management. And so therefore, that's the process we're in right now, is determining what that long-term path is and taking very purposeful steps to get there. And so even what you're talking about with, you know, video uploads or any of that kind of stuff, it's going to be a lot better than you can currently do. You're going to have a lot more control over what you're going to be able to do. And I've got to stop there before I get in too much trouble about features that are too far out and possibly changing. But yeah, it's going to be really exciting what we have in store there too.
Now, I have a
question for you. How has this process, this experience, you know, culling through the data, getting all the feedback, how has it affected your perspective of the game and the community?
Well, I kind of cry myself to sleep every night clutching my pillow. No, it's actually, I am the kind of person that I'm very thick-skinned. I want things to be very blunt, very straightforward. You know, I'm Team Cap all the way. You know, that kind of thing. So ultimately, the feedback is really, really good. A lot of it is positive, and you know, the shift in that from the time we announced back in March to now has just been massive. So really, really happy with how the community has received everything. But I think that when it comes to that, we're getting some of that positive stuff, and we're using that. So it's all a tool for us. We're using that to say, okay, this is in good shape. We can, I call it juggling. The team hears me talk about juggling all the time. And it's basically, you know, we're going to take character management. The whole point of what we're doing over the next couple of months is we're taking character management and throwing it up in the air as far as we possibly can, where we don't have to juggle it again for some time, because it's going to be in such a good state that we're not going to get, you know, this massive feedback that changes are needed. We will then, you know, be juggling the encounter building and monster building and campaign, all those elements will be what we're juggling at that point. And so we're going to really be focused on taking that feedback and using it. And so from the community itself, to get back to the original question a little bit there, I think that the community is really, really opinionated, but I think that is a really good thing. I think that is what has contributed to 5e being as good as it is. Because I'm a fanboy. Like 5e is good, and so I think that a big part of that has been the community, because the community is not afraid to talk about what they want. They have told Wizards of the Coast what they want. Wizards of the Coast is listening to that. I think that the community, when there is that negativity, I can almost always see in that negativity that I can get down to the root cause of what the negativity is, and it is either typically whatever we're doing in that area sucks and we need to get better at it, and we will, or it's just someone that's really, really passionate about what's going on. I even see that a lot of the kind of feedback that I don't want to pay for your service again when I've already bought the book 3 times or whatever. I understand where that's coming from. I told you again, even coming into the process, I knew that was going to be something that was going to be a little bit of a challenge, but at the same time I'm seeing that in a pretty positive light, because people wouldn't be talking about that if it wasn't something that we're doing that they wanted to use. So if they were just completely meh about everything that we were doing, then they're not going to passionately argue about anything, and they're not going to share their opinions. So again, we've got hundreds of thousands of people sharing opinions, and I've read them all. And so it's been a really tough and time-consuming process, but it's all really, really valuable, because that's going to help us make the best decisions we can going forward.
And related to what you were just saying too, I would like the takeaway for people watching and maybe watching later, to like the guys working on you and the other team, like you love D&D. I mean, it's not like you're just some guys like working in a bubble or in a vacuum. It's like all the things that people are like, I wish it did this. It's like, yeah, they do. You guys do too. You love you D&D players, so it's like I'm sure there's a million things you want to add to it as well.
Absolutely. Another thing real quick, I saw a question come through. Why is Nerdarchy so great? So Dave, I'm going to take this question. I'm going to answer this one for you. But Nerdarchy is great because these guys, again, I think we talked for an hour and a half. I think, Dave, or something like. I thought we were going to maybe talk 20 minutes, but I think we talked over an hour when we met up at Unplugged. These guys really, really get it. They're some of my favorite people that I've met along this journey. So they really are great. And even talking about Nerdarchy to other people, one of the things that I used to explain, I was like, these are real gamers that are talking about real gaming. And I think that authenticity is something that I even liked before I met you guys. So Nerdarchy is great for a variety of reasons, but that's one of the ones that I'm going to bring up right now. I think we're probably close to time here, Dave, and I thought that we might do a legendary bundle. I don't know, like how does that need to happen on your side?
Well, we could definitely do that for you guys that are in the chat. So I will use a really high-tech method at some point. So make sure you put something in the chat somewheres, and I will just like scroll up and down and hit stop somewhere.
Scroll up and down.
I was wondering that because I was thinking like Adam's pretty generous. He loves giving away legendary bundles. So.
When I asked my question,
legendary bundle, so we'll do that.
When I asked my question, Adam, the root of the question really is not D&D Beyond, but Adam Bradford. Like, how is all this information coming in that maybe you didn't have access before change or enhanced your perspective of the game and the community and how it's being played?
Yeah. Okay. I like that. I will try to be brief here because I probably have a lot to say, but I will be very brief. I think that the thing that I'll start with what has surprised me. The thing that has surprised me the most about this community and all of this feedback coming in as Adam Bradford, as just a player of D&D, is people are playing the game in so many different ways. Dungeons and Dragons, it's like when you play World of Warcraft or Overwatch or whatever. Apparently, I'm a Blizzard fanboy, but so any of these video games, everyone that's playing that is getting a pretty darn consistent experience. You know, there might be some different types of activities people enjoy in those games. So somebody might play World of Warcraft and all they do is fish, you know, whatever. But at the end of the day, anyone who fishes in World of Warcraft is getting that same experience. Dungeons and Dragons, that's not the case at all. And of course, I knew this intellectually before, you know, going into this, but then seeing all this feedback come in where people are wanting something to work the way that they want it to work, it's just really mind-blowing that people are playing Dungeons and Dragons so differently. Again, Critical Role is so prominent right now. You can look at the way that Matt is running that game and the way those players are playing. It is just a different experience than what's happening at my table. I don't necessarily think one is better or worse or anything like that, but it's just a different experience. And I think that, you know, when you guys play, it's going to be a different experience. And I think it's a beautiful game where you can have this framework and this backdrop that all this different kinds of stuff is coming out of. And it really has deepened my appreciation for what Dungeons and Dragons is and what it can be. And I'm going to wax poetical here, but I think it can literally be a positive influence on the world. Like, we live in a pretty crazy world today. And I really think, I've heard Perkins say this several times, if more people play Dungeons and Dragons, I think the world will be a better place. I completely agree with that, because it's like when you play Dungeons and Dragons, you are expressing creativity in a way that you just can't do with other types of gaming. I'm not going down on video games or board gaming or anything like that. Dungeons and Dragons is just doing something different. And more than anything, it is sparking inspiration in people that are playing it. And then people are doing these incredible things with it. And so every time that feedback is coming in, most of the feedback that fascinates me but then frustrates me from a development standpoint is that feedback of, I want to be able to do this. In my game, we do this. My DM allows this. And sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, like, man, that DM doesn't care anything about balance. You know, that's like this side of me. But then this other side of me that's that more like role playing and like, rule number 0 is like, well, hell, that sounds really, really cool. Like what they're doing though. Man, I wish we could support that. Let's try to figure out how we can do that. So I think more than anything, that's the thing that has surprised me and just really brought a smile to my face and maybe some of the tears on the pillow, is that people are playing this game so differently, and there is no right way to play Dungeons and Dragons, and that's so intriguing to me.
If you look around the table and people are smiling and having fun, then they're playing it right.
I determined that I was going to pick the winner by, I just been scrolling up and down until you stopped talking. And we've landed on Zarif Gaming, who I'm really happy because he's in our chats all the time.
Oh, congratulations, Zarif Gaming.
So Zarif Gaming, if you reach out to nerdarchy@gmail.com, I will get your information over to Adam. Congratulations and thank you, Adam. Appreciate that.
He's also telling me that something happening with my computer screen, I guess, behind me.
Yeah. It was.
This is our set, and so I guess it timed out.
So that the sense of community and everything you were saying is just so true. It's like when people ask us about things, and I think they fail to realize when we're talking about things, all we're doing is giving our opinion. And at the core, even if we're being really curmudgeon-y about it or whatever, at the end of the day, I personally just don't care what other people do. If you're having fun, who cares? You're having, you're doing it right. Just keep doing, do it your way. There's nothing wrong with that. And people ask me a question about a certain rule or how to do a thing. I'm like, well, are you the GM or the player? Have to ask me anything. Just do what you think is good for your game.
Yeah, and I think it's a really good point, because one of the things I think I'd mentioned this last time. I think the first video that I ever came across you guys was I was looking for a little bit of theory crafting about archers in fifth edition. And like I said, I kind of disagree with a lot of the sentiments there. But that's great. Like, in my mind, like, that is a really, really good thing. It's a healthy thing for the game. I will definitely engage in theory crafting and crunching and all these kind of things all the time, because I love it. I love this rule set. I love the game. And so, but again, I have loved every edition, like even fourth. At least in some ways, I loved it.
Yeah, I liked it.
I just couldn't find anybody else that did. And so, so ultimately, with with all of that, it's really important. I think that people do appreciate that. People want that guidance. You can see our entire company exists because of people wanting that for World of Warcraft. They wanted some kind of commentary and figuring out what was good, what was a good combination, what was a bad use of their slots, whatever. And so I think that is always going to have a place. It's going to be something that is going to be really, really important as we go through, even whether it's Critical Role, someone watching a Nerdarchy video, someone seeing a tweet by Sly Flourish or whatever. Like, everyone who is trying to get their head into this space and get their opinions and those viewpoints out, it's going to enrich the game itself, because it's going to give especially new players some kind of way, some kind of Velcro that they can stick to, and it's going to help them down the road. The way that we used to have to learn how to play Dungeons and Dragons was I went to the gaming store, into the scary basement, and it was actually an attic there, but into the scary attic, and it smelled bad up there, and it was a kind of a harrowing experience. But I just stood and watched people Dungeon Master and all these kind of. That was the only thing that we had available to us, 20 years ago. And I love it that we live in an age where that's just not the case anymore. People can learn how to play Dungeons and Dragons in a variety of ways, and I think that all those viewpoints coming together and being this melting pot of what D&D is, I think that is the best thing that can possibly be happening for the game.
We didn't even have game stores to learn from. Like there was one older kid in the neighborhood that basically recruited us. He was neighbors with my friend and recruited us to play D&D. And he was always cool to us, but later, look, in hindsight, he was one of the nerds, right? Because there was such a stigma, with comic books and gaming, and that's right. He would always spend time and hang out with us, and he really introduced the game to me. Now I'd played like 2 sessions of Gamma World and seen the Red Box before that, prior to that. But my early teens, he really exposed us to the game. That was the first time we had a real D&D group and got to play the game. And I was just lucky because I had a really good GM who taught us how to play the game, and taught us how to move from just like hack and slash into role playing. And so that was really cool. But now it's so easy, like you said. Like, you can pop on a Nerdarchy video, a WebDM video, a Critical Role video. You can see how different people are playing the game. You can watch the creators of the game play the game.
Yeah, it makes a big impact. This is a question. I know we're out of time probably, but I just want to ask this because this has been on my mind a lot lately, and I'm thinking about putting a little more of my personal energy into advocating this a little bit more. But grid or theater of the mind? What's your preference?
I like theater of the mind.
So most of our stuff is theater of the mind, and then when the combat breaks out, we'll use the grid and the minis, and there may or may not be terrain on it. We may or may not define the boundaries. It's just an easy way to quickly see where the enemies are and how far away they are from you.
I like that Sly Flourish's guide that he just shared. Is it Sly Flourish, the theater of the mind kind of like guidelines?
Oh yeah,
for doing,
I saw that. I think he updated that. Yeah, it is. I think that I'm probably going to try to connect with him at some point because I see he's trying to kind of carry a banner there. But I think that I do think that 5th edition, that's one of the areas that can be beefed up quite a bit with supplemental, again, mind share from the community of how that effectively works. And so I wanted I'm kind of polling people informally as I come across them. I wanted to get your take because I absolutely love miniatures. We I've built like a 2-scale Skyreach castle. Like, I mean, there's all kinds of stuff going on there that I love, but I am just a huge proponent of mind theater, and I think it just does some incredible things for the game and for the experience at the table once you can get your players to really buy into it. And so anyway, yeah, we'll see what happens with all that, but we'll try to figure it out. But yeah, I use a mix of both, but I'm trying more and more to focus on mind theater for science. So,
well, to help your research, a lot of people are saying grid in the chat too. There's a couple theater to mine, but I've seen grid a lot.
Grid, yeah.
It depends how we play too. Like, we've been really slow to really adopt virtual tabletops, even in our online gaming, and like the games that we're running on our channel regularly that are online, they're all theater of the mind. Professor Bell from Comic Book University, Monday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern time runs a Marvel Phase Rip game. That's all theater of the mind. Tuesday nights, 7 p.m. Eastern time, I run the Scarlet Sisterhood, and that's a D&D game, and that's all theater of the mind.
Which Marvel system are you guys using?
Oh, the 80s one.
Oh, nice.
With like the amazing and monstrous stats and all that.
All right. Okay. I need to play with you guys
and we even have someone that's like doing all this production work on that game as well for us. We're Keep Eagle. He's actually, I've seen him in the chat somewhere. Mm-hmm. But it's funny because like we're putting all this work into this game that's been
like a 30-year-old dead game. Yeah.
Hey, some of those are the best, man. I have a special place in my heart for the West End Games Star Wars. Because that was actually my gateway to D&D, and I just loved handfuls of dice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a good system.
So, yeah.
Well, the FFG Star Wars is keeping with the handfuls of dice. That's for sure.
Well, that's the funny thing. I actually enjoy that system a pretty good bit, primarily because of the complications and triumphs and the way that something, but then there's something bad that might happen, as a result of that. And I've actually incorporated a great deal of that into D&D, just kind of that concept. And so, so the thing about that system, though, that's so funny is their app is so good. Their mobile app is really, really good. And I was like kind of even looking at it just as we're thinking through our app and what's going on, several months ago, I'm looking through their app and like, this is a really solid mobile app experience. The dice rolling is really, really good. It feels great. But then I got to thinking, it's like, I think that it might be saying something that in order to even play the game, you kind of need this app. Like, 'cause it's like when I tried to roll those dice and like, man, it was like slowing everything down so much. I couldn't get used to it. I'm sure people get used to it over time, but I couldn't do it. I had to go straight for the app.
I just what it takes? It just takes a couple of rounds. You get quick at sorting, and that's what you need to be able to do. It's just like sorting things out and canceling. But the tricky part is because it's a lot of symbology. You have to learn all the symbols and remember them.
But yeah, I'm a big fan. I'm pretty sure I will be running some giant one-shot of that pretty close to the movie's release because I can barely contain my excitement. I don't know how many times I've mentioned Star Wars on this, but I'm sure somebody's got to count.
Lucasfilm paying you, man.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing too is I do hear a lot of people coming into the hobby and playing D&D because they played a version of Star Wars first.
Yeah. Well, I'll just be honest. Like 5-year-old me watched Star Wars, and I literally would not be where I am today if it wasn't for Star Wars. And I know that sounds so dramatic and crazy, but it is the truth. Like, it is what awakened me creatively and imaginatively, and so
the Force awakened you.
Yeah. The Force awakened in me when I was 5. And so, yeah, I think that 30-plus-year-old me here is very, very grateful for 5-year-old me sitting down watching all this.
So we are definitely past the hour mark now, which is fine. I could sit here and talk to you all day easily. We're such huge fans. I've been a fan of a digital tool in this vein since D&D Insider, back and forth edition. There's always been an appeal to me to jump on with D&D Beyond, whereas with the other virtual tabletops, they're great, they're amazing, they do really good things, but I didn't feel that same pull. It's because it's not really, because D&D Beyond, just as it is now, just speaks to the way we kind of game.
It's like D&D, but it goes beyond that. Your very first live chat was about D&D Beyond.
It was. That's how we started doing these live chats. It's like, hey, you guys, made an announcement, so we did a live chat that day.
Oh, I think I saw that. You
did. You were in the chat. I remember.
Okay, yeah. I saw that. That was good. But yeah, I appreciate it. I have been just so grateful to be able to be involved in this thing. Like it really just kind of materialized out of nothing. And I am happy that I work for a company where something like this, like dreams literally can come true, because this was not something we were going to make. I kind of persistently said, hey, this is something we should do, and we were able to get it off the ground, and it's been a big success for us. So, really, really happy to be part of this journey. Very excited about the journey ahead. I am the kind of person, I've got a personality that's not going to ever really be satisfied. So I hope that helps people out there. Like we're just going to continue to make things and to make this better and better. So really, really excited to be a part of it. Happy to come on with you guys at any point. Like I said, we seriously need to play, together at some point. I definitely want to be involved in that.
I have a thought for that. I'll talk to you about it off air.
That sounds good.
But anyway, guys, the sale for D&D Beyond is going on today. It's a huge discount, $5 to $10, and it also transfers over to the Legendary Bundle, you said, as well?
Yes, absolutely. I think the Legendary Bundle's around $285 for literally everything. On the site right now. So that's the cheapest it's been, I think, ever, even when we originally released and didn't have 3 other products in it. So yeah, it's definitely a pretty steep discount today, today only. So be sure to grab that up. This is how that Cyber Monday thing works. So grab it up today. And Dave, let's just be sure. I need a Twitch ID for our lucky winner of that Legendary Bundle. So shoot that over to me.
Oh, absolutely, we'll do that. So guys, thanks for coming on with me. All you guys in the chat, thanks for hanging out. I know we skipped the roll call today, but I wanted to talk to Adam and give him some more time to talk about D&D Beyond. So until next time, guys, stay nerdy.
Stay nerdy.